Good morning, everyone. See, फ्लेजलिंग वालों अपना मुंह बंद रखोगे, ठीक है? To others, good morning, everyone. My name is Samar. Spelling is important, and I'll take Indian polity for you. Some part of Indian polity. I'll make it clear what part I'll take so that it'll be easy for you to track it. So we'll start initially with the idea of constitution itself, going to the philosophy of constitution, the background, and then we'll be hitting to preamble, union and its territories, and citizenship. This is the first part that we'll be looking at. The second and the most important part that we'll be hitting will be after a little gap, which will be regarding elections, which is a very recurrent theme and is one of the most important part when it comes to UPSC. Not only polity, you need to understand elections from a varied angle where you need knowledge of almost every subject that is being taught to you, right? Because it is the very first class, let me clear out a few things. First thing is that, understand one thing, this exam is not a very difficult exam provided you understand it's an organized exam. If you can organize your efforts to respond back to what the questions are asking in the exam itself, it is an exam which possibly can be clear with a great ease. If you understand this thing from day one, it is going to help you in the long run. The more disorganized are, the next to impossible it is to qualify this exam. And the first thing which is most important for this exam is just one, and that is your foundational clarity. Because the kind of questions that UPSC is asking, just by rote memorization of any substance from any book is not going to help you qualify the exam. What is rather needed is a great amount of clarity. Clarity when it comes to concept, clarity when it comes to application of the concept, and clarity with respect to what is happening in the current scenario to be added to what the question is demanding. This is the trend right now that we see in UPSC, which is majorly based on conceptual clarity. Any place you feel like you are not understanding, do let me know, we'll repeat it. However, please give the leisure to the teacher to cover a topic. Because let me tell you one thing, you people are preparing for the first time. A teacher is not teaching for the first time. So by all chances, the doubt that is coming in your mind is already a part of the lecture itself, what the teacher would teach you in the coming time. Don't expect everything to be showered to you in 2 minutes. Classes are there, topics are there which are related. However, you are most allowed and welcome to register whatever doubts you have. Number one. Number two, one of the ways, or rather the most important way, of having your foundational clarity is to read minimal number of books, maximum number of times. It is easier said than done. Everyone knows this part. Kam padhna hai, zyada baar padhna hai. But it doesn't happen generally. And there are multiple reasons for it, boredom being one of them. Please do not fall into that trap. Let me tell you, knowledge is not an empirical thing which can be measured. If you feel you are knowledgeous, let me tell you, it is comparative. Please read more, please revise more, so that the confidence you have over a topic is to greater heights. Only when you have that confidence that you have understood something, you will be able to deliver in the exam itself. Getting the point? No harm in revising multiple times. Because this is the first class, let me fix out another thing about your resources, so that we don't get confused during the way of preparation that what books we will read and what books we will not. See, the most important thing that is going to be for you, the most important thing is your class notes itself. That is because it is something that you take down by yourself after understanding what the teacher has explained in the class itself. So class note is most important. Let me tell you, it's a big achievement if you can prepare all the notes of all the subject within these 10 months. Because throughout your preparation cycle, these are your Bible to come back and then read anything and everything which is being taught to you. Number one. Number two, added to this, many teachers would be giving you handouts, including me. Do read the handouts. Handouts always give you a set of new thinking or perfect perspective to the topic that is being dealt in the class. Remember, notes that you make in the class itself are to be revised that very day, that particular day. Because if you lose this touch, it's going to pile up in the next 3-4 months and then you will not be able to do so. Make sure that whatever you write in the class on that particular day, you at least figure out another half an hour or 45 minutes to read it again. When you do that, your power of grasping and memory, putting in your memory, remembering increases like anything. So please make sure you revise that very day, including the handout which is being provided to you. The second important thing is standard book. And as far as standard book for polity is concerned, I'll refer you only one book, and that is yellow books. The one which will be published by the institute and given to you. You may read Lakshmikant because peer pressure is important in this field. आपका पड़ोसी पढ़ रहा है तो आप भी पढ़ेंगे, तो पढ़िए लक्ष्मीकांत, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. Remember one thing, minimum 1 book and maximum 2 books is what you should have. But remember one thing, read any book which will help you in both the sets of examination, prelims as well as mains. Lakshmikant is majorly a short notes kind of a book, which is a very good one as far as prelims is concerned. But the utility of Lakshmikant per se is very, very limited when it comes to the main exam. You may always refer to the yellow book in order to have a greater idea and perspective for the pre as well as main exam. Make sure you are referring to them. Getting it? Huh? Third, and the most important thing is newspaper. Let me tell you, newspaper is the fundamental thing to preparation, which means there is no UPSC preparation without reading of newspaper. No matter what YouTube channel you are looking at, what Telegram channel you are following, what other social medias are giving you any kind of a summary of newspaper, there is absolutely nothing which can replace newspaper. If you are not reading a newspaper, let me tell you, you are not inside the competition. And take my words. Rather, the newspaper reading might increase with time, but it is never going to decrease. So make sure you are reading a newspaper every day. It is a part of your life. No matter what you do, one thing that you should not at any cost miss is reading the newspaper. If you are traveling, make sure that at least you look at what has happened and read the editorial page, but do read it. Now it is your choice if you want to go for the Hindu or if you want to go for the Indian Express. It is up to you. More or less, both the newspaper have evolved quite well as far as UPSC's demand is concerned. Let me tell you, it is fundamental. From day one, I am telling you this. These are the 3 resources you have to refer to. For my part especially, but I would say, would go constant for almost all the subjects, except the name of the books would change. Make sure you are reading and revising maximum time. Let me tell you how you study also at home, so that from day one you should know what is the idea of studying anything and everything. Remember, step 1 of studying is always your notes and the handouts which are provided to you, that you make in the class itself and you learn in the class itself. Once you have learned it, you have made it, you go home, make sure you revise them that very day. So that if a teacher has delivered 100 and you have understand 40 in the class, one revision can take it easily to 60 to 70. Very easily it can take you to that level. So revise it that very day. If you leave it, let me tell you, next time when you read it, you'll not be able to grasp the equal amount of knowledge what has been conveyed to you. Please read it that very day. To revise a 2.5 hour class, I'm sure it won't take more than 45 minutes. Even if you are slowest to the core, it won't take more than 1 hour. So do revise it that very day. So first is making of notes, second is revision of the note. Third, now comes smart preparation. How do we do it? Now we visit PYQs, previous year questions, because that is the only milestone that keeps us updated with the idea what UPSC is interested in. Now you will get both MCQs as well as the subjective main exam question. Getting it? As far as MCQs are concerned, you can always visit them. You can always take your own time to solve them, because from the month of November, December, anyways you will be completely invested here. However, the most important thing is this, the main exam question. What you need to do is, whatever topic has been taught to you, you need to visit all the PYQs which are based on that topic. You have to read them. I'm not asking you to write them. Getting the point? What you have to do? You have to read them. Once you read them, it will be registered in your mind that, okay, these are the topics over which UPSC has been recurrently asking questions. And then, point number 4, you hit your standard books. See, understand one thing mathematically. If there are 10 PYQs of the main exam, by reading and revising your class note, you'll be able to solve at least 6 of them. You can't solve 10 of them. You'll be able to solve 6 of them, 6 or 7, whatever it is, on an average. Once you are done with that, when you hit the books, you'll be able to solve another 2 of it. Still there will be 2 or at least 1 question which will either be too much of current affair of that year or is too complex or fluidic to be written either in the notes or in the books. For those kind of question, do refer to internet, do talk to teachers, do talk to your mentors, do talk to your friends. Whatever be it, our idea is very simple, that after each day of investment into that part of syllabus, we are ready that till date, whatever UPSC has asked, we know that part. If you have this confidence from day one itself, no one can alter your position. However, it is easier said than done. It's very easy for me to write down a formula and expect all of you to follow it uniformly. But make sure you uniformly follow it. Because this is the only way by which you can understand the trend of UPSC and keep a tab on what is being asked in the exam with what is being taught to you in the class with what is printed in a book. This is the only method by which you can combine all the 3 things. And that is the only way to go ahead. So either you do it today or you do it after failing 2 prelims. Choice is yours. But the way forward is this. Getting the point? And for all of these things, if you can understand, simply what you need to do is to have a foundational conceptual clarity. Clear? So on that note, we will start our class, which is regarding Indian polity, GS2, right? Hanji. Sorry? What is the perfect time to attempt those questions? After revision only. If you can try writing them, you can try it, but not everyone is at the same place to write it. That's why I didn't say write it. Because if I'll say write it, then I have to teach you structure first. Right? Making short notes is of no use. Yeah, you can. Whatever helps you getting the confidence that I know all the questions which has been asked till date. is a way forward. Someone might like writing it down. Someone might draw a mind map kind of a thing. Someone might write down bullet point. But if I say you to write the answers, you will start investing good amount of time to write an answer which is not be of great use right now. So don't worry, in the next 2-3 months it will be introduced to you as a part of answer writing practice. Let's start with the idea of polity. Okay. See, polity and politics are not the same thing. Generally, when we say polity, we fall into the trap of imagining that we are talking about politics. These are two different things. Politics is the struggle for power. What right now the political parties are doing? Right? Contesting elections in order to form the government in the upcoming election. That is struggle for power. They are struggling to get the power, the authority. That is what is politics. But that is not what we are interested in to understand the subject first. Rather, what we are trying to read here is something called as polity, which is different from politics. Now, what is polity? Please write the art of who gets what, when, and where is polity. So what is polity? It is the art of who gets what, when, and where. So we are talking about something to be provided to someone at some place, at some location, at some time. Now what we are looking about is nothing but resources. So when we say it is about who gets what, when, and where, it is about a process called as resource redistribution. Now these resources that we are talking about, sometimes these resources are tangible resources, something like infrastructure, Delhi Metro, you all use, and sometimes these resources are intangible resources, something that you cannot touch but you can feel, like equality, like justice. Right? So what are we talking about? In polity, we are talking about resource redistribution. Now for this resource to be redistributed in a society, we need institutions. No individual, no matter how much powerful or wealthy, can do a resource redistribution. Getting it? And that too for a country, it is next to impossible. So for that, what do we need? For that, we need institutions. And these institutions that you see, which are involved in the idea of resource redistribution, these institutions interplay. That is there. It includes both the kind of institutions. Sometimes the formal one, the governmental one, the public one, and sometimes even the non-public, non-governmental or market-oriented institutions. So we need all kind of institutions in order to distribute or rather redistribute the resources that we have. Now if here different institutions are coordinating, cooperating, operating together, collaborating, etc., then don't you think we should set down the basic set of rules for their coordination? If we will not set down the basic set of rules for their coordination, then that institution which is more powerful vis-a-vis the others will engulf the weaker institutions. Isn't it? Which means we have to set down the rules of the game. Then only they will be able to efficiently and effectively interact with each other. And we have to write down a basic law book that institutions have to follow in order to do the resource redistribution. So what do we need for that? We need a basic set of rules. This basic set of rules is what is facilitating resource redistribution in the society. Now this is what is polity. When I talk about Indian polity, which is our subject, Indian polity, when we talk about Indian polity, we are talking about resource redistribution in the Indian context, in our country's context, which means these institutions which are interacting, they are redistributing the resources in India and for Indians, which means the basic set of law that we are talking about here is nothing but the Constitution of India. I'm sure Ravindan sir must have told you, at least introduced you about the Constitution, and that Constitution is nothing but a basic set of laws. And what is this Constitution doing? This Constitution is setting the polity in the country, which is nothing but resource redistribution. Whether it is tangible resources or whether it is intangible resources, it is the Constitution which is the major instrument to redistribute the resources in the country. Getting it? Now all of you know about Constitution. I'm sure at least that much you know, right? Can you help me define a Constitution then? What is a Constitution? What is a Constitution? A Constitution is a basic or fundamental law of the land. Right? Anything else that you know about Constitution? What is a Constitution? It is the supreme law of the land. Anything else that you know about Constitution? It is organic law of the land. Very good. Organic law of the land. Anything else? Yes. It is the aspirational document of a country. Very good. So these are basically the idea behind the Constitution. So what you see here, which are being used to define the Constitution, basically these are the characters of a Constitution. Because what is Constitution is a basic set of laws which is important for resource redistribution. The addition of value to a Constitution comes from these features. And let me tell you, a basic or a fundamental law is completely different from a supreme law, which is completely different from an organic law, and which is completely different from that of an aspirational document. So basically these are characteristics of what we see as Constitution, or in specific the Constitution of India. Getting it? In the course of today's class we will understand all four of them, but understand that the constitutions which are around the globe, they are divided by the political scientists into different types. Basically, there are different classification of constitution, which are very easy to understand, but yet a little conceptual, because we see a great amount of questions in the prelim exam regarding this. If we talk about classification of constitution, then the very first classification of a constitution is based on the idea of codification. What is codification? To segregate things and then keep them in different places and then codify, name them, is what is called as codification. Based on the idea of codification, constitutions around the globe are either divided as written constitution or are divided or termed as unwritten constitution. Written or unwritten constitution. Here you understand one thing, that both written and unwritten constitutions are written. It is not that unwritten constitution is a verbal constitution. No, it is also a written constitution. The difference lies in codification. So written constitutions are codified, whereas unwritten constitutions are not codified. Now what does that mean? That means laws in a country. If we talk about law as a concept, what is law? To define, a law is the collective conscience of a society. Collective conscience. Collective, all of you understand? Collective is not individual, rather a group. So we are talking about collection, hence the term collective. Conscience, on the other hand, what is conscience? The inner voice is conscience. Inner voice, that inner nudge which comes when we do something right or wrong, either a satisfaction or a warning, kare ye to galat ho gaya. That thing which comes from within, that inner voice, is what is called as conscience. And that inner voice is based on your value system. Whatever is your value system, that inner voice is going to be aligned to that particular value system, which means we are talking about value system, not of individual, but of a larger group. That cumulative value system of a group in a society is what is called as law. Getting the point? Now, this collective conscience of a society can be represented through different ways. For example, it can be represented through by writing down important thing in constitution, then those will be called as constitutional laws. That can be done from time to time by enacting of legislation by the ordinary legislative bodies like that of parliament at the center and the state legislative assembly at the state. So those are called as ordinary legislation or statutes or what we generally called as legislation itself, right? Many a time even customs in a society are also regarded as laws. For example, in India, we give the effect of a law to that of a custom also. Not only that, rules and regulations are also laws. Ordinances which are made by executive that you will read in some time are also regarded as laws. Rather, court judgments, the judgments that Supreme Court and High Court gives, the constitutional court that you will understand, they also have a force of law. They are also equivalent to that of law. So basically what I am trying to tell you is that in a society, there are different kind of laws. And in every society, there are different kind of laws. In a written constitution, those different kind of laws are segregated into different boxes and are named differently, because that is what is the meaning of codification. So basically you have one of the boxes where you have written constitutional laws, which means what is there inside this box? All those provisions which are written in the constitution will be segregated as constitutional laws. Similarly, you have places where you have segregated ordinary laws. Similarly, you have boxes where you have rules and regulations, and then you have customs, and then you have ordinances, and then you have court judgments, and so on and so forth. So if you see how the laws are kept over there, you can see a very organized way of keeping it into different segregated codified boxes. That kind of a political setting is what is called as a written constitution. Getting it? On the other hand, see it will be more clear. On the other hand, in an unwritten polity also, there are different type of laws. Exactly like there you are having constitutional, ordinary, rules, regulation, customs, court judgments, ordinances, etc. Here also you have different kind of laws, because any polity would have different kind of laws. But the difference is that here these laws are not codified, which means there is no such logical segregation between the different kind of laws. If I ask you there, where is constitutional law? You can very well indicate me to that box saying, sir, there are my constitutional laws. Will you get confused between a constitutional law and a court's judgment? No, you will not, because there you see a proper codification, a segregation. Whereas here if you see, there is no such codification or segregation. If I ask you here, where are constitutional laws? Can you indicate me towards anywhere? You cannot. If I ask you, where are court's judgment? Can you tell me where they are? No, you cannot. If I ask you, where are ordinary laws? Can you tell me where they are? No. So, talking specifically in an unwritten constitution, what happens is, there is no codification. Whereas, here, there is a codification or a logical segregation or a rational division between the laws. Getting the point? Now, when I say that constitution is the basic or fundamental law of the land. When I make this statement, what does it mean? It means that in a written constitution, this law, constitutional law, is the most important law. How do I see it? I see it by a very simple thing. What I see is that any other set of laws that I am seeing in the country, all of these have to align to what the constitution says. Which means for their survival, any other law, for their survival, what is needed is alignment with the constitution. This is fundamental. So spirit of this law can be seen in all other laws. If any of the laws anywhere challenges what the constitution says, then because it is a fundamental law of the land and also the supreme law of the land, the other set of law is declared as invalid. So no one, and absolutely no one, can challenge the constitutional law in the country. Getting it? Now when all the laws are aligned to the constitutional law, that is where we call the constitution as the fundamental or the basic law of the land. It is basic, you can't violate it. On the other hand, when I say that the constitution is the supreme law of the land, that is where I am trying to say that in the pedestal of laws, different kind of laws which are there in the society, which is the highest set of law, it is the constitution which is the highest set of laws. Now, if it is at the highest position, it is definitely a special position, isn't it? It's a special position, and that's where constitution are special laws in a country. Getting it? On the other hand, let's look at the unwritten constitution. Can you tell me where constitution is? No. Can you tell me where ordinances are? No. Can you tell me where ordinary laws are? No. Which means all of them are inside one box, and there is no such codification inside it. So there is nothing which is special, rather everyone is equal. And if everyone is equal, then remember, when everything is equal, it is ordinary. So all the laws in this setting are called as ordinary laws. We all are ordinary citizens of India, right? What does that mean? We all are equal. None of one is special vis-a-vis any other person. All of us are equal, and that's why we are all ordinary citizens of India. Similarly here, all the laws are equal, and hence they are all ordinary laws. Now tell me something, when there is a special person in the house, don't you treat them specially? You treat them specially. So definitely the constitution needs special treatment. And you tell me, special treatments are complex treatment or easy treatments? Complex. So definitely the way I treat the constitution is little complex, which means if I have to change, or what politically we call as amend, if I have to amend the constitution, then what kind of a process is needed? A complex process is needed. I cannot treat it equally with others. Then how can I say the constitution is special? If it is special, it has to be treated specially. On the other hand, look at here, everything is equal, everything is ordinary. And how do we treat ordinary things? Ordinarily. If we treat them ordinarily, tell me by your experience, ordinary things are complex things or simple things? Simple things. So what kind of a process do I need to amend this kind of constitution? It is a simple kind of a process. I don't need that much of complexity. Getting the point? Now, this written constitution that you see, it comes from United States of America. It is the first country to draft a written constitution, which means to have a constituent assembly which sat down, discussed all the perspective, and then they wrote down a book called as Constitution of United States of America. So that is what we see coming from USA. Whereas an unwritten constitution comes from United Kingdom or the British system. Is it clear to all of you? यहां तक समझ में आया सबको? Great. Now, in a state, in the modern form of state, or what we call as government, we see three organs or arms of the state or the government. One is the legislature. What is the work of legislature? It is enactment of laws. One is executive. And what is the work of executive? It is, very good, implementation of laws. And the third one is judiciary. And what is the work of judiciary? What is work of judiciary? Interpretation of laws. Be very, very sure about choice of words. ठीक है? Interpretation of laws is the right term. Understood? Clear to all of you? Now, you look at this setting and try to understand this particular difference, written and unwritten constitution. Can you tell me, in a written constitution, of the three organs of the state, legislature, executive and judiciary, whom do you think will be more powerful? Executive? Why so? Huh? There is no concentration of power. So concentration of power is not there for anyone. Why executive is becoming powerful then? Yes. Who will become more powerful here? Judiciary, right? And why judiciary will become more powerful? अरे मछली बाजार नहीं, कौन बोलेगा? हाथ उठाओ किसको आता है? हाँ, टेल मी. बिना हाथ उठाए, हाँ, you were the one shouting ना, tell me. Final interpreter of the law, so that's why it has become superior. क्यों? Unwritten constitution में वो नहीं है final interpreter of law. वो है? Then? Yes, please. Little loud, beta. हाँ. Very good. Huh? Yes, then don't mix both the things. Let's go step by step, right? Look at a written constitution. What we have understood in a written constitution? It is the constitution or the constitutional law which is the supreme law of the land. If any other thing violates that law, then what happens to the other laws? The other laws will be dropped and constitution will stay back, right? Who will tell us that there is another law which is in confrontation with the constitution? It is judiciary. So it is judiciary's responsibility to tell us if there is a law which is confronting the constitution, at the same time also give a judgment that the other law is invalid as far as constitution is concerned. So if you look at a setting of a written constitution, because of a written constitution and constitutional supremacy, it is the judiciary which becomes powerful. Think about it. Suppose there is a custom, a tribal custom of killing people, human sacrifice, what is also called as bali, right? Suppose there is in a part of India, maybe northeast or central pocket of tribals who believes in the idea of human sacrifice. Now that is a custom that generation wise they have been doing. As such, customs are equivalent to laws in India, and their custom says take away the life of a human being. It's a law, equivalent to law. On the other hand, when we will read the Constitution of India, we will understand that there is Article 21 which talks about right to life and liberty, which provides a protection to your life. So Constitution on one hand is saying protect life. A custom on other hand is saying take away the life, which means there are two confrontational views of life here. One side there is constitution, other side there is law. Now this is a friction, and because constitution is supreme, what will happen? the custom will be declared invalid. Who declares the custom is invalid? Judiciary, and that's how judiciary becomes more powerful here. Understood? On the other hand, if you look at this particular setting, where all the laws are equal, here you see what kind of a treatment do you need to all kind of law? An ordinary or a simple treatment, which means laws can be made and can be amended and can be dropped by a simple action of the legislative bodies. So if you look at the three organs of the state over here, the legislature, executive and judiciary, you will see that in an unwritten constitution, it is the legislature which will become more powerful. Why? Because the legislature, the parliament at any point of time can make any law, can amend any law, can drop any law. Because all the laws are placed similarly, and what kind of a process is needed to change them? It is a simple process. As a result of which, very simply laws can be made or amended or dropped. That's what the Prime Minister of New Zealand would say. He would say that something which comes to my mind while I am shaving for the office in the morning becomes a law by the time I come back in the evening to my house. It is as easy as that. So who becomes more powerful? It is the legislature or the parliament which becomes more powerful in this case, which actually takes us to the idea of understanding there is something called as judicial supremacy, though you will read them in the respective chapters, but still judicial supremacy, which is there in United States of America, and here we see something called as parliamentary sovereignty, which is seen in case of United Kingdom. Getting the point? Judicial supremacy and parliamentary sovereignty. Now, if the judiciary becomes powerful there and the legislature becomes powerful here, we should use the same term. Like we should call it judicial supremacy, so this should also be parliamentary supremacy. Or if we are calling it parliamentary sovereignty, then that shall be called as judicial sovereignty. Do you think we can interchange the terms? Basically, what I am asking you is, what is the difference between supremacy and sovereignty? Getting the point? Can we interchange the term? Can we call it judicial sovereignty and can we call it parliamentary supremacy? To an extent, actually we can call it parliamentary supremacy, but we can never call that judicial sovereignty. Can anyone explain me what is the difference between supremacy and sovereignty? एक second. Someone is answering here. We'll come back to you. Yes.
Kind of free. It has that freedom to make any laws according to their will. And once included in that uncodified structure, it can amend it easily.
Okay. Yes, please.
There will be limitation for the powers in the parliament, like in judiciary system.
There will be limitation on parliament, powers of parliament, yes. And what is the limitation? And there will be no limitation on judiciary. Then what is the difference? Both are having limitations. No, let's solve one. In the first one, you are saying that the parliament will have some limitations, right? I'm asking you back, won't the judiciary be having limitation? It will be having, so both organs are having limitation. Then what is the difference? Think about it once. Yes, please.
I think, sir, supremacy refers to where judiciary can be controlled when it becomes arbitrary. But in sovereignty, it can take any decision according to its wishes.
Very good. Very good. See, the point is, second one, you missed it. First one is fine. When we use the term supremacy, supremacy is a relative term. It's a relative term, which means it's a comparison. Comparison between, here there are three organs. So a comparison between these three organs we are doing. When we say judicial supremacy, we are saying that judiciary is more powerful than the legislature and the executive. That doesn't mean that judiciary is all powerful. Because if you look at judicial supremacy in US, there is a written constitution. So what is supreme? The constitution is supreme. Can the judiciary violate the constitution? No, there is constitution above all. Below it are the three organs, and within the three organ, who is more powerful vis-a-vis the other two organs? It is the judiciary. Hence the term supreme. It's a comparative, relative term. Understood? On the other hand, when we talk about sovereignty or sovereign power, let me tell you, sovereign means all powerful. Generally, sovereign as a word that we will learn in preamble in the very next class, sovereignty or sovereign as a term is generally used for countries. A country is generally sovereign, right? We don't talk about an institution to be sovereign, but because Britishers have a long history of the parliament, the evolution has taken over the last 1000 years, 1215 Magna Carta till date, we see that the parliament has evolved into one of the most powerful of the institutions in Britain. So much so that there is nothing above the parliament in Britain. Because there is no written constitution, so there is no constitutional supremacy per se. Right? Everything is ordinary, and who can change all ordinary thing with the ordinary process? It is the parliament alone. So the parliament becomes all powerful in case of that of Britain. So when we say here more powerful, it is supremacy, and when we say it is all powerful, we say it is sovereignty. And that's why in Britain it is said that the British Parliament can do anything and everything except changing a man into a woman and a woman into a man. It is that powerful that it can do anything and everything. So there is nothing in the country which can challenge the British Parliament. And that's why comes the idea of parliamentary sovereignty. And that's the difference between the term sovereign and that of supreme. Supremacy is a comparative term, and sovereignty is all powerful, almighty term, because there is no constitution per se to put a limit on that of parliament. Clear to all of you? Now, this, yes.
We have seen in post-independent history that we have
We are not coming to India yet. Wait. We are right now in US and UK. आ जाएंगे थोड़े टाइम में इंडिया, ठीक है? Then you ask me. Is this clear to all of you? Huh? So basically we are looking at two types of constitutions based on the idea of codification, which takes us to our second kind of classification, which comes from here only. Like the constitution, which is a special set of laws, are to be dealt in a complex manner, and the unwritten constitution, which is an ordinary set of laws, are to be dealt in a simple manner, which takes us to the second classification based on the idea of amendability or amenability. Based on amending the constitution, some constitutions are called as rigid constitution and some are called as flexible constitution. As the name suggests, here the process of amending the constitution is complex. It is complex. Whereas here the process of amending the constitution is simple. The process of amending the constitution is simple. Getting it? This is the classification between rigid and flexible constitution. Generally speaking, written constitutions are always rigid constitution, generally speaking, because you still can have a written constitution where it has been written down that the process of amending the constitution is simple, which means flexible are both written as well as unwritten constitution. However, basically to understand, majorly unwritten constitution are flexible constitution and written constitution are rigid constitution, which again comes from our understanding of the Constitution of United States of America and that of United Kingdom. Clear to all of you? This is the second classification of constitution. The third classification of constitution is based on the idea of origin and nature of constitutions. How a constitution came into being and what is the nature, what the constitution is trying to do, becomes the idea for the classification of the third type, which gives us two types of constitution. One is called as a transactional constitution and the other is called as a transformative constitution. Transactional and transformative constitutions. It's very easy, just understand it. Transactional constitution comes from the term transact. It comes from the term transact. And what do you mean by transact? Negotiate, bargain, negotiate. How many parties do you minimum need in a transaction? At least two. So here also there will be two parties because the transaction is going on. One party would be the state and the other party would be the people residing in the state. Getting it? And then there is a negotiation which is going on between the state and the people. If to understand this constitution, just understand like this. Suppose there is state on one part and then people on the other part. Then the state, in order to govern the people, would come with a basic set of laws. Let's suppose a C1, and using C1, state is governing people. It's a basic set of law, not even a constitution, just some laws which are helping the state to govern the people. Now let's suppose the people understood that this set of laws, C1, is not enough for us. We need some more liberty, more claim, more rights, etc. As a result of which, these people will collectively bargain, negotiate with the state by agitating against the state, and depending on the intensity of agitations, how strong is that demand, the state might respond back by some more laws, maybe C2 now, which is used to govern the people. Now maybe with some time, maybe 10 year, 15 year, 20 year, 30 year or 100 year, people might feel that even C2 is not enough for us. We need more rights, more privileges, more claims. If that happens, then people will again collectively bargain against the state and they will agitate against the state. And depending on that intensity of agitation, the state might come up with a third set of law, C3, which is now used to govern people. It may happen that after another 10, 20, 30, 40 or 100 years, people will understand even C3 is not enough. We need more claims, more privileges, etc. This kind of constitution, where it is evolving from one to other, majorly based on political rights. If you look at the negotiation between the state and the people, it is majorly based on political rights. When you see that, these kind of constitution which are evolving in nature and where the idea, the nature is majorly political, are called as transactional constitution. If you have to search for an example to understand transactional constitution today, we do not have such an example today per se. That's because you will understand in some time because of transformative idea. However, if you have to understand a transactional constitution, go back to any country having a colonial past. India was having a colonial past, so we can go back to our own history to understand transactional constitution. Think about the Britishers on one side. State was Britishers. And think about people of India, maybe led by Indian National Congress on the other side, which was negotiating with the British government, right? Now, if you know a little about history, you will know that we have got many set of laws. For example, the 1909 Act, the Council of India Act 1909. And then INC negotiated with the state after 10 years to get us 1919. And then again it negotiated to get us what is 1935, the Government of India Act 1935. Then again it negotiated to get us what is the Independence Act 1947. If you look at these laws, they are evolving from one to another. And the major demand is always political rights. Getting it? On the other hand, if you look at a transformative constitution, it comes from the term transform, which means to change. And what you will change? Change the life of people living in the country. And when I say life, that life includes not only the political aspect, but it equally includes the social as well as the economic aspect. Rather, more of justice comes when there is more of focus on social and economic rights. Getting the point? So, these kind of constitutions will be aiming at changing the life of people, which is not only restricted to the political rights part, but equally goes to the domain of that of social as well as economic rights. So, what you are trying to do is you are trying to change 360-degree the life of a person, which means you need a document, a constitution, which talks about all the aspects. And to have all the aspect included in a single document, don't you think we need discussions? We need deliberation, we need debate, and for that a dedicated body is needed, which would sit down and discuss what are the things which may change the life of the people who are living over here. Which basically means that these kind of constitution are always made by a constituent assembly. Whereas a transactional constitution evolves with time, a transformative constitution is enacted on a particular day. So there is a date which is particularly given to that of the transformative constitution on the day on which it was enforced, like the Indian Constitution, 26th January 1950, right? So there is a particular date on which that constitution would come into force. Added to that, this constituent assembly would write down a constitution, which basically means a written constitution. And what is the idea of this written constitution? To change the life of people, right? If that is the case, can I say that this enacted constitution of the Constituent Assembly is providing me certain aspirations of what the life of my people would be with implementation of the Constitution? And that's where you should understand why the Constitution of India is also called as an aspirational document. That's because the Constituent Assembly sat down and then they debated, discussed, deliberated all the aspect of lives which might change the complete 360-degree perspective of the citizens of India after constitutional governance. Getting it? And whatever we suffered for, we sacrificed for in the last 200 years of struggle from Plassey to partition, all of those things were written down in the constitution as an aspiration to achieve in the near future. That's what we will be reading in the preamble also, right, which is there throughout the constitution, which means our constitution is nothing but an aspirational document for us, what we aspire to become in the coming days. Understood? So these are the two types of constitution. Again, strictly speaking, this comes from the United Kingdom idea, but UK is not exactly a transactional constitution, rather it is transformative. Why it is transformative? Because UK citizens are also looking at the government to change their lives. That's why majorly when you have to read this, then do not consider UK, rather you consider any colonial government set of rules. On the other hand, as far as transformative constitution is concerned, United States of America remains the best example. Now there is a question, if Indian constitution is transactional or transformative. Let me give you the answer and then go back a step to also explain you the confusion. The answer is the Indian constitution is a completely transformative constitution, because our constitution was enacted by a constituent assembly and we are looking at changing the life of Indian citizen 360 degree. Then why is there an argument that it is transactional also? That's because, as you can see, from 1919 we got 1935, from 1919 we got 1935, from 1935 we got 1947, and the constitution that we see today has heavily borrowed from 1935. In the words of Justice Mukherjee way back 1950s, in the Supreme Court, he said that the Indian constitution is nothing but a replica, an extended version of what was there in the colonial past in the Government of India Act 1935. Let me tell you something. Any country which had a colonial past will definitely have some imprint of that past which is a part of their present constitution. However, that doesn't mean that that constitution in an independent country becomes a transactional constitution. Rather, constitutions today are more and more in the direction of transformative nature, because everyone wants to grow in life. Getting the point? So these are the three types of constitution that we have. Now, Indian constitution, being a written constitution, being a transformative constitution, being a constitution enacted by Constituent Assembly, we must know a little about the Constituent Assembly, right? So please give the heading, Constituent Assembly. Anji. Yes.
As with time, the people always grow in their reason.
Yes.
So is a transformative constitution with time turn into transactional if people ask for more rights?
Are people only asking for political rights?
No, yeah.
So transformative constitution will also grow. Your perspective of changing the life will also change, na? Will it remain same? Are we looking at the same avenues what we were looking in 1950s? In 1950s, if you are looking for agricultural productivity, today you are looking for startup culture. So new laws are coming into the domain, isn't it? Chaliye. Please write Constituent Assembly. See, there are other features also. If you pull out your handout, you will be able to look at many of the features of transactional and transformative constitution, which will be, is there any transactional type of constitution exist in the present? Dikshant, that's what I've been teaching. That you do not have one, that's why only we are going to colonial past. Chalo. Second, what is the difference between basic law and fundamental law? Basic and fundamental remains the same beta. Okay? Basic and fundamental means the underlying principle. That's what I explained. Nothing, absolutely nothing cannot be aligned to the constitution. ठीक है? चलो यहाँ तक समझ में आया सबको? हाँ? चलो. Please write them. Constituent Assembly. So you see, Constituent Assembly is a byproduct of the demand of complete independence in India. Getting it? If you will understand the complete 190, around 2 centuries of struggle of Indians against the Britishers, you will see that the demand for independence, complete independence, was never the demand from day one. Getting the point? If you look at the complete cycle from 1757 Battle of Plassey to that of the partition, which is 1947, the independence, then you will see that in that complete 190 years, it was not a constant demand from day one itself that India be given independence from the Britishers. Rather, that also evolved with time. Initially, it was all about having a say in the government, that you please include us in what is happening, which gradually with time evolved to the idea of saying representation in the government, that you make us a part of the government itself, which evolved to the idea of we governing our people directly, but okay, under your umbrella protection, which finally came to the idea of governing our people ourselves without you present here in India. That is how comes the demand of independence. Getting it? To tell you exactly when this demand of complete independence came, it won't be wrong to take you back to the Lahore session, wherein Pandit Nehru demanded for Purna Swaraj or complete independence. Now, if complete independence is the demand of the Indian movement, then complete independence from Britishers, which means Britishers will be sent back. So, who will remain back in India? Indians. Now, these Indians are to be governed, and Indians only will be governing Indians. For that, we need a basic set of laws. Remember, resource redistribution, polity has to function, institutions have to interact. So, we need a set of laws to do so. Are we going to use the same law what our colonizers were using against us? No, obviously. We have to look for a new set of law. And what kind of a law? A law which changes our life, which means we need a constituent assembly. So if you look at the demand of constituent assembly in India, it logically succeeds the demand of that of Purna Swaraj by Pandit Nehru. Though you will read all of these things in detail in history, let me give you a wider picture of what was happening. See, with 1950s, when the demand of complete independence came in the Indian scenario, in 1934, for the very first time, M.N. Roy made a demand of constituent assembly. And now you can understand why 1934, why not in 1920s? That's because the demand of complete independence itself is coming in 1930. That's why in 1934, the first demand of having a constituent assembly. Now, M.N. Roy was a great communist leader, but India at that point of time was all about Congress. The legitimate demands of Congress were the legitimate demand of Indians in 1930s. So, in 1935, Indian National Congress would make a demand for that of constituent assembly. What was said by M.N. Roy itself, which would be made clear by Pandit Nehru in 1938 by saying that India is going to be independent very soon from the Britishers and will formulate our own constituent assembly with direct elections, wherein which the members of the constituent assembly will be elected. So what kind of a process are we going to take? A direct election process. We'll read about it, but just understand, elections, choosing our representatives, is of two types, direct and indirect. If I elect you and you represent me, it is direct election. Like we are right now going to do it for the MPs, that is what we do for the MLAs also. So we elect you directly and you represent us directly, that is direct election. However, if I elect you and you elect somebody else and that somebody else represents me, that is called as indirect elections. Like that of Rajya Sabha members, I elected the MLA, the different MLAs coming from different constituency, they elected the Rajya Sabha member. and that Rajya Sabha member is representing my state, hence representing me. So that is indirect election. This is direct election. What is Pandit Nehru saying? That direct elections will be held in India to send the representatives to the Constituent Assembly of India. This is 1930s, 34, 35, 38. See here, you will not see any kind of a response from the Britishers. It is only Indians who are making the demand. There is no response from that of the Britishers. And there are two major reasons for not giving any response to Indians on their demand of Constituent Assembly, because if they say yes to Constituent Assembly, it is implicitly saying yes to independence of India. Getting it? So Britishers at that point of time, you need to understand the world scenario, were placed at a position where they were the non-challenged authority of the world. So number one, Britishers were world power number one in 1930s. That's why it is said that the sun never sets for British Empire. Along the latitudes and longitudes of the world, you'll at least come across a piece of land where there is the crown's authority. On the other hand, India was the most prized possession of the Britishers, the most important colony. Rather, Lord Curzon would say that if we drop India from the colonies of Great Britain, the greatness will be questioned. That Great Britain great is a contribution of the hard work of Indians. You talk about Industrial Revolution. That revolution is by the hard work of the Indians. You talk about anything and you will understand that Indians have played a great role in the development of that of Great Britain. At this position, when you are strongest and you have an important thing close to us, do you think anyone will leave it? No, and hence no response to that of the demand of a Constituent Assembly by Indians. However, this situation is going to change, and that would change on 1st of September 1939 with bombing of Poland, and 3rd of September declaration of official Second World War. The moment Second World War is declared, you read all of these in world history. When the moment it is declared, countries would be divided into groups and then they will start fighting. And you should always understand that economy always decides the empire. If you have good economy, you have a good empire. Britishers had a great economy, hence one of the greatest empires. But war always drain resources. And so will World War II do. It will start draining the resources of the Britishers, as a result of which the position of the Britishers will start dwindling in that rank 1 position. With the intensification of war and the participation of new actors into the group, like that of two young countries, the United States and USSR, will rather bring in more challenges for the Britishers, who would be compelling the Britishers that, see, you need to take the support of Indians. They supported greatly in World War II, World War I. Where are they in World War II? But then Britishers are not talking to us because we are fighting on the agenda of Constituent Assembly and complete freedom. Upon international pressure, majorly that of USA and USSR, the Britishers will respond back to us for the first time in the year 1940 with something called as the August Offer. Again, these are things that you will read in detail in modern history. But in August Offer, whatever politically they will offer us, that is something which is outdated and we don't want it. As a result of which, Indians will reject the August Offer. The Britishers also came with a half-heartedly approach in the August Offer, so they will also go back happily. But by the time World War II will intensify, and Japan, which was on the other side of that of the Britishers, will intensify its effort in the Indo-Pacific region to an extent that it will be standing on the boundaries of India. Here USA and USSR who have now gained some good ground on world politics will start creating great amount of pressure on Britain, saying that what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for Japan to be inside India and then you will go and talk to Indians? Go and talk to them. As a result of the international pressure of USA and USSR in particular, Britishers will come back to us in the form of what is called as the Cripps mission. Again, what they will offer us in Cripps mission is something that we are not okay with, that you will understand in history, and as a result of which both Indian National Congress as well as the Muslim League would reject the Cripps mission. Rather, Gandhiji would say that Cripps mission is a post-dated check. A question which came in UPSC a few years back, post-dated check. And the Cripps mission also fails in India. Remember, it is the failure of Cripps mission which leads to Quit India movement in India. Another question came in 2017-18. Getting the point? So it is the failure of Cripps mission. Anyways, you know what will happen to World War. That's a story for all of you to read in world history. But let me take you to 1945-46, just after another 4 years. By 1945-46, there are majorly 3 changes which has happened in the global as well as the local arena. Globally, 2 major changes have happened. Number 1, Britishers are no more world power number 1. Rather, that spot is right now occupied by USA and USSR. Number 2, internationally, an organization called United Nations has come up and which is supporting the demand of independence of many African as well as Asian countries, including that of demand of India. This is what is happening globally. And locally, if you look at what is happening, you will see that the freedom movement has intensified length and breadth across India. And what has happened is, now that rebellion, the freedom movement, has got inside the forces. The instruments like the Navy, Army, Police, Air Force, etc., which was used by the Britisher to control us, now we are seeing revolt in these organizations for freedom itself. As a result of which the Britishers very well understood that giving independence to India is a matter of fact which might happen either today or tomorrow or day after tomorrow. With this in the mind, they will come back to India in the form of what is called as the Cabinet Mission Plan in 1946. Although again what they will suggest us is something that we are not looking for, so we will reject Cabinet Mission Plan also. But inside that Cabinet Mission Plan is a scheme of things for the constitution of Constituent Assembly. So though we will reject Cabinet Mission Plan, we will accept the plan, the scheme for composition of the Constituent Assembly from the Cabinet Mission Plan. We'll take the scheme from Cabinet Mission Plan. And this Cabinet Mission Plan basically will be talking about the composition of the Constituent Assembly from the 2 geographical territories which were available in India at that point of time. One was called as the British Provinces and the other was called as the Princely States. As far as British Provinces are concerned, the plan talks about indirect elections. Be sure about this point. Pandit Nehru was talking about direct election. But what kind of a thing are we taking? We are taking accepting indirect elections for British provinces. Whereas for princely states, it talks about nomination. So the king or the prince is going to nominate a person from the princely state. Depending on the population, the numbers were divided to the Constituent Assembly. Understood? So the composition of the Constituent Assembly was partly elected and partly nominated. However, the way the composition was decided, most of the big names of that time, most of the bigger leaders, representative of that time, were inside the Constituent Assembly except two. Muhammad Ali Jinnah and Mahatma Gandhi. The reasons you will read in history and you will enjoy them, but they were never a part of Constituent Assembly. Understood? Now this Constituent Assembly, please don't run behind facts. कितने लोग थे, कितने चले गए, कितने रह गए, not needed. These members in the Constituent Assembly will be divided into many committees, major and minor committees, to work on different aspects of polity in general and constitution in particular. And one committee will be given the task of drafting the constitution, called as the drafting committee, under the chairmanship of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Please read about Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. The more you know about him, more you will be able to understand the legalistic character of the constitution. Getting it? There are few names like Dr. Ambedkar, Mahatma Gandhi, Pandit Nehru, Indira Gandhi, Lal Bahadur Shastri. No matter whether you hate them, you love them, doesn't matter. You can't ignore them for the exam. So do read about them. And let me tell you, UPSC and people who have read some good books are least concerned about your WhatsApp University. Whatever it teaches you, you also very well know what it is. Political propaganda. If you really want to have a logical understanding, do read some good books in your life. Do read good books. Rather have a habit of reading at least 20-30 pages every night before you sleep. If nothing else, this is going to make you officer. Getting it? Read it. It's one of the important things. Anyways, Dr. Ambedkar and the team drafted the Constitution of India in almost 3 years' time, to be exact, 2 years, 11 months, 18 days. Useless data, but ठीक है. हम पढ़ते हैं, हम तो यही याद रखते हैं. तो 3 years' time, the Constitution was drafted. And the Constitution of India that was drafted by the Constituent Assembly in that of 1950 was having a preamble, some provisions, and a few schedules. What is a preamble? A preamble is an introduction to the Constitution, like a preface that we will read in the next class. Provisions that we see in the Constitution, the complete Constitution is divided into different parts. When the parts are big, then those parts are divided into chapters. Inside the chapters or the parts, you'll come across articles. यही जो पूछते रहते हो सर कितने याद रखने हैं? अरे कुछ भी याद नहीं रखना है, 20-22 है, तुमको ऐसे ही याद रह जाएगा. ठीक है? Now what is an article? Please write a stand-alone provision. A stand-alone provision in the Constitution. A stand-alone provision in the Constitution is an article. Stand-alone provision समझ में आता है? Which means one article is enough by itself to explain you what it means. You do not need another article to complete the meaning of this article. Yeah, another article can definitely bring in more clarity. Another article can definitely add more value. Another article can make you understand that with more emphasis on some other aspect. But that doesn't mean that to understand Article 1, I have to read Article 4, or to understand Article 21, I have to read Article 29. Article 21 is enough to tell me what is there in Article 21. That is the meaning of stand-alone provision. Clear to all of you? Now, inside the articles would be clauses, and inside clause will be sub-clause, inside sub-clause, sub-sub-clause, and inside sub clause there will be sub clause. That we will read what is the reason. It's a professional hazard that we'll talk in some time. So this is the constitution that we see here, and it was having 8 schedules at that point of time. What are schedules? These are like appendices which are at the end and which generally gives us quantitative information. For example, there are 28 states and 8 union territories. So schedule 1 would talk about them. Now every time you talk about states in the constitution, you don't need to write 28 names. You can just write states as referred in schedule 1. Getting the point? This was the constitution which was given by the Constituent Assembly. Today is the second class of polity. Third class? Huh? Third class. So one by Ravindran sir, I think. Another by Bhan sir. Satvika Bhan sir. Okay. So here is someone who is writing, but sir, Article 53 and 74 are read together for better understanding. I'm truly impressed. I'll go home and I'll read Article 53 and 74 together. Left eye 53, right eye 74. अरे बेटा ठीक है, नया नया पढ़ रहे हो, अच्छा लगेगा, बढ़िया लगेगा. I'll tell you 3-4 articles एक साथ पढ़ोगे तो और बढ़िया लगेगा. ठीक है? Doubt सुनो. Do we need to make separate notebook for all teachers? See, you should always follow written constitution. Unwritten constitutions will create problems for you. If you make a box and put all the notes over there, giving the heading UPSC note, 10 महीना बाद बहुत दिक्कत हो जाएगा पॉलिटी को गवर्नेंस से सेपरेट करने में. So I would suggest go for codification. ठीक है? हाँ, please. Perfect, you are logical. Isn't it? Think about the alternate ways because you asked a question. Think about we are making states but not amending schedule 1. Will that happen? Then? ठीक है, धीरे धीरे सीखेंगे. ठीक, चलो. 1950 constitution, right? And now we are in 2024. If you look at today's constitution, we are having a preamble. We are having a preamble, na? Provisions, let me tell you numbers, although not important. We were having close to 395 articles when the constitution came in. Today there are more than 465 articles. ठीक है? Numbers not important. Please don't run behind them. Useless है पूरा, कभी काम नहीं आएगा. ठीक है? नहीं रटना है. And if we talk about schedules, today we have 12 schedules. Which means the constitution that was given to us in 1950 and the constitution that we have today are not exactly the same documents, right? There has been some addition, deletion, etc. to the documents. Now the question is, if the drafting committee made such a superb effort after almost 200 years of fighting with the Britishers, and they made a constitution which was looking at changing the life of people 360 degree, then what was the need of changing the constitution? We are changing the constitution day by day, right? Then what was the need of changing it? We would have stuck to rather the constitution which was given to us in 1950 itself. No need of making it a change. But then we are making a change to it. Why do you think we need to change the constitution? Very good. Because aspiration changes with time. And constitution has to reflect what is happening with time. Getting it? All of you know, laws are collective conscience of a society. Conscience is value system. Value system is only aspiration, right? The value system or the aspiration we were having in 1950s is not exactly the same what was there in 1960s or 65 or 70 or 72 or 77 or 90 or 95 or 2000 or 2024. it is changing, as a result of which the laws which represent those conscience must also change. Isn't it? This was beautifully put forth by Pandit Nehru in the Constituent Assembly, who would say that anything which is stagnant loses relevancy. So what Pandit Nehru will say? He will say stagnancy is equal to irrelevancy. Remember this statement, it applies to human beings also. If you do not respond back to your life with the right set of changes in you, then you will become irrelevant. Getting it? So, to be relevant, you have to become, what do you say, changing in a nature or adapting, to be exact. That's what the Constitution is doing, because we understood this. So, what we did, we put a special provision inside the Constitution in the form of Article 368, which talks about amendment process of the Constitution, how it can be amended. And why we did so? Because we wanted our Constitution to grow with the people. If it is growing with people, tell me something, living thing grows or non-living thing grows? Living thing. So can I say Constitution of India is a living document? Definitely I can say it. It's a living document. Now tell me something. Living things are organic thing, inorganic things? Organic things. So remember, that's why Constitution is also called as an organic document, because it responds to the change in aspirations. Because it responds to the change in aspiration. When you will see either judicial interpretation or the amendments that is happening to the Constitution, you will understand that the Constitution responds back as the society is changing. For example, if you look at Article 21, this article is a very important article. Article 21, which talks about right to life and liberty. Now, though you will understand this article in detail, just understand what is organic nature of the Constitution. Initially, this Article 21, right to life and liberty, was just about an understanding of having a protected life. So, if you look at 1950s, the idea behind Article 21 was that state has a duty to protect your life. You should have a protected life. But with time, during 1970s, it changed to the idea of not only a protected life, but also a dignified life. That see, it is not just an animal existence, but rather it is a dignified existence. So not only protection, but also dignity to that life is what is Article 21. The same interpretation that it is a dignified life, it started evolving more during 1990s, where we said not only a dignified life, but rather an educated dignified life. Getting it? Which would further evolve because of internet revolution, social media generation, so much of electronic devices, etc. We said not only a dignified educated life, rather a life with privacy also. Getting it? So the idea is that it would start from the quantitative aspect of understanding life and would evolve with time to also include the qualitative aspect. What exactly is the same law talking about in different years is the adaptability, the response it is giving back to the changing society. As our aspiration changes, the law also changes. Getting the point? Huh? You will read in detail that there are certain judicial cases for it. For example, this one is the famous Puttu Swami case. This one is Unni Krishnan case. No need to write, you will be taught in detail. This one is Menaka Gandhi case, And this is the initial reading of the Constitution. Now what you see on the board came as a mains question last year only. Write the organic nature of Constitution of India with special contest to that of Article 21 and its changing nature. Getting the point? So, Constitution has to respond back to what the society aspires for. And that's why the Constitution that we have till date is one which is adapted. You can look at many countries which were having constitutions. They will dissolve with time and new constitutions have come up. But you look at India, so beautifully it has been crafted and so much of pragmatism is there in the Constitution that we knew that the Constitution will change. As a result of which, we wrote down one provision that we will be able to use to change the Constitution itself to respond back to the changing times. It's not ego that I have made it, so it is perfect. No, I have made it, it is looking good for today, but it may not look good tomorrow. Hence, one provision, Article 368, you change it according to your aspiration. Getting it? That's why there is no need of dissolving Constitution. You can simply change it to what you need as a part of your current aspirations. Getting the point? Now, one of the reasons of many of these changes that you see is that amendment process, right? And you will read about many important amendments like that of the First Amendment, the 7th Amendment, the 23rd, 24th Amendment, the 42nd Amendment, which is also called as mini constitution. Why so? Because it amended so many parts of the Constitution. It was looking like we are trying to carve out a new constitution from the pre-existing constitution. And most of the changes that you see in that constitution, it is in a way inclining the powers more towards that of the executive. And who was at the helm of affairs that time? Indira Gandhi, the only man in Parliament of India. India is Indira and Indira is India. That is what is said for Indira Gandhi. You must read about her. You must read about her. Since you are trying to get into administration, you should know what a strong administration looks like sometime. You think about a prime minister who feels that the enemy nation is becoming big, so more powerful. So what she did? Divided the country into two parts. कोई एयर स्ट्राइक फ्राइक कुछ नहीं, सीधा देश को ही दो टुकड़ों में बांट दो. Divide and rule. British had taught, we learned. ठीक है. Anyways, that was Indira Gandhi. Let me tell you, Indira Gandhi was not a leader because she was good in her words. She was a leader because she was great in her actions. And understand this line very, very clearly. Your actions speaks louder than your words. ज्ञान देने वालों की कोई कमी नहीं है. Please work on your actions. Whatever you commit to yourself should reflect in your actions. So, I'll tell you one instance, maybe you will be knowing it also. So basically, when India got independence, the prosperity that you people are able to see today is what only you are seeing. India was not exactly like this when we got independence, because what we got with independence was poverty, hunger, and death. Getting it? To an extent that we were not even having food to eat. It was the job of the government to get the food from other countries to be managed for millions of people over here in India. And so we had many bilateral ties with many of the countries to get the food. One of our important partners here was that of United States of America. You will read about PL 480, Public Law 480, under which US used to export us, or we rather used to import the food grains. Let me tell you very frankly, these food grains that we were importing were of the lowest quality. Today, that will not be even used as fodder. for our pet animals. But at that point of time, we had no choice. So जो बचा कुचा जो भी यूएस के पास होता था सड़ा गला सामान सब भारत भेज दिया जाता था और हम उसे कंज्यूम भी करते थे because as you know beggars have no choice. We had no such options. Indira Gandhi to sign an agreement travels to US to the state of Alabama and the day she has to sign the agreement in the Alabama Daily, like you are reading Hindu, in their Hindu comes the front page headline, here comes the Indian Prime Minister begging for food again. Getting it? Any other leader of today's time would have reacted, right? But Indira Gandhi would do nothing, absolute nothing. She will sign the agreement and will fly back to India. Coming back here, the moment she reaches, she calls for a high-powered meeting of all the agricultural scientists in India, including one name you very well know, MS Swaminathan. And then she will say that India is bestowed with all kind of natural resources. Where are we lagging that this kind of a news is printed in a foreign country? This is not a personal attack on me. It's a attack, you can say, on the image of our country itself. Let's work out on things and let's change the scenario. And so a highly dedicated team will start working on different aspects of agriculture. And you know what happened after a decade or so, what is called as Green Revolution. If you go straight, that Patel Nagar Chowk is there. That chalk towards left, if you see, it is written the Green Revolution Square, Harit Kranti Chowk. Why? Because if you go another 100 meters to the left, on your right side will come ICAR, Indian Council of Agricultural Research, colonial time called as Pusa. And what is the name of this road? Pusa Road. Comes from there. Right? If you go inside it, you can go very well inside it. Just go एक एक करके ग्रुप में मत जाना, निकाल देगा वो गार्ड. ठीक है, बढ़िया जगह है, घूम के आना. ठीक, very very green, you don't feel like you're in Delhi. So if you go inside it towards the end, you can see small plots of field where experimentation will be going on and new crops name would be written. That is where Green Revolution was born in India. And that's why that chalk is called as a Harit Kranti Chowk. Anyways, whatever be the story behind Green Revolution, let me tell you the result of it. Now, United States of America is dependent on food for India. It is not Indians who are dependent on US. Right now the scenario is almost opposite. This is what is called as speaking louder in your actions than your words. Remember, people will always accept you when you are great with your actions, because the legitimate authority comes with acceptance. No matter how much powerful you feel you are, unless and people don't accept you, there is no sense of your authority. Getting it? But then remember one thing, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So Indira Gandhi, who has not seen defeat in the hands of any of the opponents, will be defeated by common people of India. The very next election after emergency, she will lose the election and will come the Janata Party, and then Janata Party will pass the 44th Amendment Act, neutralizing all the excesses which have been done by the Indira Gandhi government or the 42nd one. See, like that you will be reading many other amendments like that of the 73rd, 74th, 86th, 97th. One we will read in the class, the 100th. What I all want to tell you by this story is that you need to understand the basic behind the amendment. If you only go for rote memorization of the points, you might not be able to retain them for longer period of time. Only when you know about the context, you are going to remember it for a longer period of time. So for all the amendments, there will be stories behind it. Read them, understand the scenario, and then you will be able to do a great amount of retention for all those amendments, because amendment is a part of your syllabus which is given over there. Anyways, whatever be the amendments, whatever be the judicial interpretation, whatever be the constitution today or tomorrow, there are certain features of the constitution which remains consistent, or rather which makes our constitution special. Those features are called as the salient features of Indian constitution. Please give the heading salient features. Salient, silent nahi hai. Salient, important features. See, first thing you understand, there is no such numbering. ऐसा नहीं है कि ये 10 या वो 12 salient feature है. All the things that you read in all polity classes is nothing but salient feature. Getting it? Number one. Number two, these are not exhaustive also. I cannot give you a number and say just memorize these. But yes, there are a few important ones that you will understand. Some we are going to discuss in the class itself now. Some we will leave them because there are dedicated chapters for those, which will be covered in many of the classes in the coming polity schedule, right? So let's try it and understand the salient feature. And the very first one is that it is the lengthiest written constitution. Indian constitution is lengthiest written constitution, right? And there are multiple reasons for it, why it is lengthiest. And the very first reason is the geographical vastness and diversity. Not only vastness, because US is also vast, but diversity is huge in India. And we already know that constitution is an aspirational document. So more the diversity, more will be diversified aspirations, and we have to write down those aspirations in the constitution. So by default, the length of the constitution will increase. Getting it? Second, it is the historical factors also. Now if you look at the Constitution of India, it borrows heavily from the Government of India Act 1935. And that Government of India Act 1935, by itself, that law was a bulky law. And from that bulky law, you are taking most of the provisions and adding further provisions to it. So what happens mathematically? It becomes a bulkier document. If you look at Constitution of India, it's a single document. Unlike vast countries like that of US, where two sets of constitutions are there, one for the center, another for the state, in case of India, we have only a single constitution. And that constitution is taking care of aspiration of both the central government as well as the state government, as a result of which it becomes bulkier. Getting the point? And one of the most important factor is the people who composed this constitution. If you look at the educational background of most of the members in the Constituent Assembly, they were lawyers by education and profession. Though law is a very good subject and lawyer is a very good profession, there are certain professional hazards to it. And that hazard is lawyers love things in detail. Because that is their work. They have to interpret a subjective situation in objective terms. How can you convert a subjective thing into objective term? Only when you write more. That's what they did in the constitution, and that's why clauses, sub-clauses, sub-sub-clauses, sub-sub-sub-clauses, etc. Because they have written down more and more and more. Not only quantitatively there is an influence of their background, qualitatively also. You look at the vocabulary of Indian constitution and you will realize that a common citizen who doesn't have a law background will hardly understand Constitution of India. For that, you need assistance of a lawyer. That's why many a time it is criticized that it is a document made by lawyers for the lawyers. Because in between we do not have a work. right? Even taking it critically, we say that if nothing else, this constitution is going to generate employment for lawyers. How? If any of your rights are infringed, you will go to court of law to appeal. You cannot understand anything of the constitution. So whom do you need to employ? A lawyer. Who will do what? Will interpret that constitution which has been written by another set of lawyers. And for that he will charge you hefty fees. So if nothing else, it is going to generate employment for lawyers. Now, these are many of the reasons because of which the Indian constitution becomes a bulky or a lengthier document. Right? Second, please write, it's a document of collective wisdom. Document of collective wisdom. If you look at Constitution of India, you will see that the drafting committee headed by Dr. Ambedkar, it analyzed more than 60 working constitutions while they were drafting our constitution. And provisions around the globe has been taken into our constitution. To an extent, so much so that many of the critics would say that Indian constitution is not an original document. Rather, it is a bag of borrowing. It's a bag where we have borrowed everything from other places and we have put it at one place. Let me tell you, this criticism is a worthless criticism. That's because if you understand the work of drafting constitution, you will understand that there are always some limited ideas. You cannot have original ideas for everything. Original ideas are always limited. You apply those ideas depending on your own needs. So Dr. Ambedkar and team, though they looked at multiple constitutions around the globe and also their important provisions, it is not that they copied it from there and pasted it here. It is not that we imitated what is given in any other constitution. Rather, what we did is we took those provisions which looked good to us. We analyzed those provisions if they were apt for the Indian context, and only if they were suiting to us, we took them. So even if there were many of the provisions that we liked, but because they did not suit to our requirements, we rejected them. There were many principles that we liked, but they were not suiting to exactly our requirement, so we even amended them. So if you look at Constitution of India, it is not a document which has imitated different provisions of the constitutions around the globe. Rather, at best, it can be said as a document of collective wisdom. Not only have we read the terms given in other constitutions, we have also analyzed and understood the experience behind those particular provisions. And that we will read in many of the classes. So remember, it's not an imitation document. Definitely we got influenced, but we never imitated. At best, you can think about constitution like a research document where you are looking at n number of sources and what suits to your requirement, you bring them on to your own research document. That's where it is called as a document of collective wisdom. Getting the point? Third, it's a blend of rigidity and flexibility. It's a blend of rigidity and flexibility. See, going by the nature of the constitution and its classification, we know that written constitutions are generally rigid constitution. Indian constitution is also a written constitution. Going by design, it should become somewhat rigid. But then we see that we have taken best of both the worlds. What we have written down inside the constitution is a mixture, a blend of both. Inside the constitution, there are certain things which can be amended by a rigid process, by a complex process. Inside the same constitution are many provisions which can be amended by a simple process. So not following one direction, what we have done is, we have added both the provisions. Hence, Indian Constitution is both flexible as well as rigid. Getting the point? Great. Please write, neither judicial supremacy nor parliamentary sovereignty, rather constitutional supremacy. So we saw judicial supremacy lies with United States of America. Parliamentary sovereignty lies with United States of America. Hey, उल्टा बोला क्या? पहला वाला is United Kingdom. Parliamentary sovereignty. Judicial supremacy is US. Hey, parliamentary sovereignty is UK. क्या तुम लोग समझ गए ना? होता है ना? हाँ ठीक है, हो जाता है फिर. ठीक है. Understand one thing. Neither we went for parliamentary sovereignty, nor we have gone for judicial supremacy. So in the case of Indian Constitution or Indian polity, it is the Constitution of India which is the supreme document, and none of the other organ is more powerful than the other. Wherein, if you look at our setting, it is something like here is Constitution, and from Constitution derive power, legislature, executive as well as judiciary. None of them is more powerful than the other. And who is most powerful? It is Constitution. Remember one thing, constitutional supremacy, not constitutional sovereignty. That is because sovereignty as a term is used majorly for countries. So we'll read about it in preamble. India being a sovereign country and constitution being supreme. Getting the point? Okay. Please write. Ji.
If Article 368 wouldn't be there, then it would be constitutional sovereignty. Can you say that?
If Article?
368 wouldn't be there.
So what is Article 368? The process of amending constitution. ठीक है, वो नहीं है. इसका मतलब constitution amend नहीं कर सकते हैं. ठीक है, तो फिर क्या हो जाएगा?
Led to constitutional sovereignty then.
No, why? Is article no? Why? You cannot amend the laws in UK.
The parliament, they can do anything, so that's the sovereignty there.
Then you need to have all 360 article always. उल्टा होगा. Why parliament can do everything in UK? Because the process is easy. Is it easy in India? No, number one. Number two, sovereignty is a term for territory. Is constitution a territory? No, so absence or presence of 368 is not a reason to call it sovereign or supreme. Are you calling it supreme because you can amend it? No, you are calling it supreme because on the legal pedestal, it is at the topmost place. 368 has nothing to do with it. Check. Chalo. Fourth done. Please write fifth then. Yes, please. नहीं बेटा नहीं बोल सकते. We'll read checks and balances. ठीक है. Don't worry. Then Supreme Court will overturn the law. ठीक है. We'll read something called as basic structure today. Huh? Yes, please. No, I can't. Because that will take 20 minutes better. You can revisit the class again at your home. ठीक है. If you're not getting it, please sit with me after the class. I'll teach you again. Not an issue. But we can't kill time in the class itself. ठीक. Please write point number 5. Federal polity with unitary bias. Federal polity with unitary bias. But even in judicial supremacy, we saw that constitution is supreme over judiciary. So don't we have judicial supremacy? Anjali, where is Anjali? ढूंढते हैं, रुको अंजलि को. ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं, मिल जाएंगे। अंजलि बेटा जिधर भी है इधर देख एक बार फिर। लिसन आउट द कंप्लीट स्टेटमेंट। जुडिशियल सुप्रीमेसी मीन्स more powerful. Of the three organ, who is more powerful? Judiciary. Did we say in India judiciary is more powerful than parliament and government, executive? No, then why are we even talking about it? Are you not getting simple English? It is not supreme in India. Who is more powerful in India? It is constitution which is all powerful. That's what we have done here. Abhi to samjhaya that constitution is supreme and all other organs are equally placed. Wait for some time and you will understand it. ठीक है, just be with me for some time and you will understand it. ठीक है, चलो फिफ्थ लिखो, क्या है? फेडरल पॉलिटी विथ यूनिटरी बायस। अरे तुमको क्लास में घुसते ही बोला कि 2 मिनट में सब नहीं समझ जाओगे। रुको, 2.5 घंटे का क्लास है। 2.5 घंटे नाम का है, तुमको भी पता है कितने का है। तो लिखो फेडरल पॉलिटी विथ यूनिटरी बायस। ठीक, इतना टेंशन क्यों लेना है, सब आएगा। So see, polities around the globe can be divided into 2 types, federal and unitary. अच्छा देखो, unitary comes from the term unit. Unit means one. So there is just one government. You call it by any name. You call it central government, you call it union government, you call it XYG government. That depends on you what you want to call it. Let's call it union government. ठीक है? So this union government, there is only one government and this government is all powerful. This government is all powerful. Getting it? All the power lies with this government. When I say all powerful, what does it mean? Remember, with power comes responsibility. तुम लोग स्पाइडरमैन नहीं देखे क्या? हाँ? With power comes responsibility. With absolute power comes absolute responsibility. क्या तुम लोग इंस्टाग्राम देखते रहते हो? अच्छी चीजें देखो. So power is actually responsibility. When you say that the district collector is so powerful, understand one thing, that person has got huge amount of responsibilities. To deliver those amount of responsibilities, so much of authority has been given to that office. Getting the point? So when we say someone is powerful, what implicitly we are trying to say is that that person or that office or that authority or institution is responsible. So when we say union government is all powerful, we are saying that all responsibilities lies with whom? The union government. Which means workload is always with union government. And with time, workload will only increase. Now, suppose there is an increase in the workload for the union government and the union government is unable to deliver alone all of this workload. So, the union government decides to make some other forms of smaller government. Let's call them regional governments. Okay, regional governments. What is the work of these regional government? To assist the union government in delivering those responsibilities. So earlier just one government was working. Now some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 government are working. So definitely the workload which was here, in coming months and years it will come down gradually. Let's suppose it becomes normal after a point of time and this union government says, now that the workload has become normal, I don't need any of these regional government, let me abolish them. Then can the union government do so? Absolutely yes. Why? It is the union government which is all powerful. Using that power only it created the regional government. Using the same power it can absolve or quash or dissolve the regional government. So all power lies with whom? The union government. Understood? On the other hand, in a federal polity, federal comes from the term foedus, which means an agreement. In an agreement, how many parties do you need? Minimum 2 parties, hence there are 2 parties here. So one is your union government and the other is the regional government. You call it state government, you call it regional government, you call it provincial government, whatever you want to call it, you call them. There are 2 sets of government and they have signed one agreement. That agreement is actually your constitution. Getting it? They have signed one agreement and this agreement talks about autonomy of the regional government as well as the union government. All the powers, all the functions of the union government are also mentioned in the constitution. All the power, all the actions of the regional government is also mentioned in the constitution. So if at a point of time the union government feels that let me abolish the regional governments, can it do it? No, it cannot do it because the constitution stands as a guarantor to the existence of regional government. Think about it. If all regional governments come together and they say, we don't need union government, can they abolish the union government? No, the constitution is a guarantor of the union government existence also. So it is the government, it is the constitution which assures the existence of both the governments. This kind of a setup is called as a federal polity. Understood? Which means there will be certain features for a federal polity and there will be certain features or characters of that of a unitary polity. Let's try to write a few to understand what we have learned. If you look at a federal polity, you will always see a written constitution in case of a federal polity. Why always a written constitution? Why not an unwritten one? Because powers will be shared or distributed and those are to be codified at a place and that place is the constitution itself. So you'll always have a written constitution. Getting it? If it is unwritten, who will become powerful? Parliament will amend it like this and take away all the powers. So that's why you have a written constitution. Whereas unitary polity, you can see either a written constitution or majorly unwritten constitutions. Unwritten, all of you can understand why the central government becomes powerful. Written, understand that even if there is a written constitution, the constitution might write down only about just one set of government, which is the union government. As such, both written and unwritten might give result to unitary form of government. Getting it? Here, you will always see dual constitution. So there will be 2 constitutions. One at the central level, talking about the union government. One at the state level, talking about the regional government. Whereas here, you will majorly see single constitution. Even if you see double or dual constitution, remember the other constitution is only for namesake. It is the central constitution which is most powerful. So hence you will see a single constitution. There you will always see double government. One government at the union level, another government at the state level. Whereas here you may see single or double government, but remember it is always the central government which is more powerful. At any point of time, if the central government wants, it can take away the regional government. Getting the point? There you will always come across double citizenship or dual citizenship. So the citizens here have 2 memberships, one of the union and other of the respective state. Whereas here there will always be single citizenship. Here there always be bicameralism. Bi means 2, camera means houses. Bicameralism means 2 houses. So at the central level, if you look at the houses in the parliament, you'll always see 2 houses, where one of the house will be representing the states. Getting it? called as Council of State. Whereas here you will generally see unicameralism. Sometime you might see bicameralism, but do understand, even if you see bicameralism, it is the lower house which is more powerful vis-a-vis that of the upper house. Getting it? And the last one is that here you will always see an independent judiciary. And here you will always see an integrated judiciary. Integrated judiciary, independent judiciary. What is integrated judiciary? Let me give you Indian example, you will understand. The complete judicial structure is like a pyramid. One set of courts are connected to another set of courts. So if you go to the lower court, you don't like the judgment, you can go to the high courts. You don't like the judgment, you can go to the Supreme Court. You don't like the judgment? Supreme Court again. You don't like the judgment? Supreme Court again. अरे review petition, दो review petition हो सकते हैं. Then if you don't like the judgment, Supreme Court alone, special leave petition. You don't like the judgment, Supreme Court again. Article 142, complete justice. President will never come there. President is a different function altogether. Judicially, President is not a part of judiciary, if you know it. Executive, right? So, you'll always go to the Supreme Court alone. That's why it is said that Supreme Court in India is not supreme because it is apex. It is supreme because it is final. Even if you are not satisfied with Supreme Court, you do not have any other place to go. And remember, Supreme Court is also manned by human beings. And human beings can be wrong. But even if they are wrong, you do not have a space to go to any other place. You will end up with the court itself. Getting it? You should understand it. Then only you will understand what happened during emergency. How Supreme Court, it became in a sense a slave of the executive. And that's why it will be said during emergency or rather Indira Gandhi period that when they were asked to bend, they started crawling. Getting it? Unless and until you don't understand it, you will not understand many things. Anyways, what is integrated judiciary? Where all the judicial structures are related, integrated to one another. And what is independent judiciary? Where the judiciary is separated from executive and legislature for their day-to-day working. The executive will not come and tell a judge how to give a judgment. Right? Legislature speaker will not come and say that tomorrow Supreme Court will open at 10 o'clock. So that is not the work of either legislature or executive. It is the court which is independent from their influence. Now understand one thing, that in a federal polity, the primacy is always given to independent judiciary. Why independent judiciary? Because the constitution talks about the division of power. If the judiciary is not independent and the central government can have influence over the judiciary, then the judiciary won't be an impartial arbiter in any of the case. It will become biased. And then the decision will be in the favor of the central government and not the state government. As such, it is very, very important to keep the judiciary away from the legislature as well as the executive. On the other hand, in case of a unitary polity, we know it is all about concentration of power. If that is division of power, this is concentration of power. And when you look at that pyramid, top at here is concentration of power. Can you go any place other than the court? Every time you end up with that one authority. So concentration of power. Getting it? Understand one thing technically here. When I say integrated judiciary and unitary polity, I am not saying that independent judiciary will not be here. What I am all saying is the primacy is given more to integrated judiciary, and so is the condition here. Getting it? because we are talking about the base model of United States of America and UK as reference point here, so we are trying to list down the features. Getting it? And US, in the understanding of political scientists, is called as a true federation. It is called as a true federation. Let me tell you, in the past, any country which deviated a little from these features, the political scientist will say that you are not a federation. You need to copy paste what is there in US to be called as a federal state. Getting it? But then every country has the right to make its own constitution, right? And anyways, we were a document of collective wisdom. So we took best of both of the worlds, what suited to us. Now let's look at these features. Tell me, we have a written constitution, unwritten constitution? We have a written constitution. Do we have dual constitution or single constitution? Single constitution. Do we have double government or single or double government where single is more powerful? This one where central government is more powerful. Do we have double citizenship, single citizenship? Single citizenship. Do we have bicameralism or unicameralism? Bicameralism. Do we have independent judiciary? Yes. Do we have integrated? Yes, we added both. So if you look at the features of federal polity and unitary polity, you will see that we have got features of both. But if you look at the inclination of the polity, it is more towards unitary polity. Rather, the constitution nowhere writes that we are a federal polity or federation. Rather, it writes that we are a union. As such, one of the salient feature of our constitution is that we are a federal polity with unitary bias. Understood? Others, cameralism means houses. Okay? Bicameralism means two houses. Is this clear? Fifth point? Okay. After that, there are points that we will only note down, which you will read in the respective chapters. Like single citizenship, though we have understood a little, but okay, I'll teach you this in detail. Like fundamental rights, like DPSPs, like fundamental duties, like local government, emergency, etc. are the features of, salient features of Indian Constitution. Understood? These are full-fledged chapters, no point of wasting time over here. Clear to all of you? लिखा ये सबने? Great. Please write the next heading, utility of Constitution. Utility of Constitution. Please give the next heading. And what is the utility of Constitution? There is just one utility, and that utility is to establish limited government. All other things that you read for Constitution, all can be derived from this one understanding, which is limited government. Now, what is this limited government? Let's try to understand it. What is also called as doctrine of limited government. Please read the difference between doctrine and theory. Doctrine of limited government. So today, try to understand, it's a very easy one. Today, when we look at government or state, that government is having three organs, right? That is legislature, which is for enacting laws, executive, that is for implementing laws, and judiciary, that is for interpretation of law. This is what we see today in a state as arm of the state or government. But this structure that you see today is a very recent phenomenon, is a very modern phenomenon. If you go back a few centuries, you will not be able to see this. Rather, what you will come across is an authority called as king. And this king is responsible for making laws, This same king is responsible for implementing policies or implementing laws, and this same king is responsible for delivering justice or interpretation of law. As such, there was no limit of power of this king, hence there were unlimited powers with the king. There is no limit to any power of the king. Can you go to the king and say that, sir, from tomorrow morning you will only make laws, from tomorrow you are not going to implement or interpret the law? King बोलेगा मार दो इसको. And let me tell you the beauty. You even cannot question the king, sir, why are you killing me? Why so? That's because the king has got unlimited powers, right? And remember, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. So unlimited power will corrupt unlimitedly, which means arbitrary action will be there. Arbitrary, without any logic, without any rational. King का मन क्या वो कर दिया. Understood? Arbitrary action would be there. Now remember, whenever there are arbitrary actions, what happens is simply the potential growth, or rather you write the claims or rights of individuals are compromised. Isn't it? If the king would take arbitrary action without any logic, without any rationale, will you be able to grow in that kind of environment? No, you cannot. That's because your claims or your rights will be मैं यहां बोल रहा हूं, रीड द डिफरेंस बिटवीन डॉक्ट्रिन एंड थ्योरी. कोई यहां मुझे डाउट पूछ रहा है, सर व्हाट इज डिफरेंस बिटवीन डॉक्ट्रिन एंड थ्योरी? अरे आइंस्टाइन बेटा सुन पूरा. हाँ ठीक है. सो आर्बिट्ररी पावर वुड लीड टू दैट ऑफ infringement of claims or that of your rights, as a result of which this king become a tyrant, right? So to stop that tyranny of the king, we understood that what is the reason of this tyranny, or what is the reason behind the arbitrary power? It is unlimited powers with the king. So how can we stop the king? We cannot stop the king. So we understood that when in future we are going with any other new form of government, we have to refrain from the idea of unlimited powers. As such, when the new form of government came in, we limited powers of every organ. First is that we divided the power. Second, when we divided the power, we started drawing boundaries around the institution, saying that judiciary, your work is interpretation of law. See, this is your boundary. Inside this boundary, you do whatever you want, but you cannot do anything which falls outside your scope. Similarly, to the executive, we said, executive, your work is implementation of law. Here is your boundary. Do whatever you want to do, but inside this domain, you cannot do anything outside that domain. Similarly, for legislature, what we did, we made a boundary and say, legislature, your work is enactment of law. Do whatever you want to do in that domain, but you cannot do anything outside it. Getting it? So what we did, that boundary we were unable to put for the king, we put it in the new form of government around all the organs and said that you can do whatsoever possibly remains inside your domain, but you cannot touch anything which is outside your domain, which is the idea of limited government. So what you did around the government, you draw a boundary and you said, government, you can do everything inside here, but you cannot do anything which falls outside that down. Every time you use this term cannot, remember, You are talking about limiting the powers of anyone. Cannot means you cannot, which means I am putting a limit, which means you are limiting the government. This idea of drawing a boundary, what the government can do and what the government cannot do, is the doctrine of limited government. And all of you should understand this boundary that you see, which is fixing what the government can do and what the government cannot do, is nothing but our constitution, wherein is written what legislature can do, what executive can do, and what judiciary can do. Getting the point? Huh? Now, if you look at the idea of limited government, then this idea is implicitly given in constitution. Explicit, implicit, explicit, something which is written you can read and understand. Implicit, which you can understand by derivation or reference. Getting it? Nowhere in constitution it is written this will lead to limited government. We read it and we understand, okay, this is leading to limited government. For instance, number 1, having a constitution by design is having limited government. Because what is drawing that boundary around the government? It is the constitution alone. So having a constitution by itself is having limited government. Now a constitution always establishes a constitutional government, isn't it? The government which comes up as a result of the constitution is called as a constitutional government. And a constitutional government by nature is what kind of government? Limited or unlimited? Limited government. 2016 prelim question. Getting the point? A constitutional government by nature is a limited government. Now you see, so we understood that what we have done is we have divided legislature, executive and judiciary, and then we have limited their power. And basically you will understand that the judiciary keeps an eye on what the legislature and executive are doing, because it is final interpreter, it is the custodian of constitution. So what it does, it keeps an eye on what legislature and executive is doing by an instrument called as judicial review. You will read in detail about it. Review, see something which has been already done. So judiciary is seeing something which the legislature or the executive has done. And if they are not aligned with constitution, you know already, constitution is the supreme law of the land. So that particular thing will be dropped. Who will do so? The judiciary would do so, as the judiciary's work is interpretation of law. That's why judiciary is also called as the custodian of constitution or the guardian of constitution and the final interpreter of the constitution. Getting the point? Now, this judicial review that you see, this judicial review and the idea of limited government that we see, this gave us the biggest case in Indian political history, for us at least, which is called as the Keshavananda Bharati case 1973. Though we will read about this case in detail in many of the places, you need to understand that Keshavananda Bharati case is one of the most important cases because it settles many of the debates in India, the political debates. And one of the most important debate is who is more powerful. Leave judiciary, there is parliament also who is in the competition. So basically if you look at post-independence our history, there has always been a struggle, or rather a tug of war or a tussle rather you can say, between the judiciary, Supreme Court on one side and the parliament, legislature on the other side. And the tussle, the tug of war, push and pull, is based on just one point, and that one point is who controls the constitution. Constitution is more powerful, everyone knows, but who controls the constitution? Is it what the Supreme Court interprets, or is it what the parliament writes or amends? You know, parliament can amend the constitution. So what is constitution? What parliamentarians write, or is it what the judges interpret? who controls the aura of constitution was the point of debate between the parliament on one side and the judiciary on the other. This tussle you will see starting from Shankari Prasad case to that of Keshavananda Bharati case in case of fundamental rights, and the same tussle you will see starting from A.K. Gopalan case to that of again Keshavananda Bharati case in case of DPSPs. It will be taught to you in detail, but what you will see is a tussle. Sometime the parliament making a law saying that this is the new law, and the judiciary saying no, this is unconstitutional, this is not acceptable. To make the judgment of the court invalid, the parliament will come with a new amendment saying that what the court said is wrong. To respond to which the court will come with another interpretation saying what the parliament did is wrong. So this tug of war, this tussle is going on between both the institution, which will settle down in the Keshavananda Bharati case. Understood? And what happened in Keshavananda Bharati case? In the Keshavananda Bharati case, the court came up with an innovative idea, what is called as the basic structure doctrine. Basically what happened is, the parliament was saying that I can amend this, I can amend that. And judiciary was saying you can amend this, you cannot amend that. In this case, the judiciary says, okay parliament, chill, you can amend full constitution. So parliament became happy. 20 साल से लड़ रहा है, एक ही दिन में कोर्ट ने बोल दिया you can amend everything. So parliament became happy. Then court said, but there is a small condition. Okay, what is that condition? See, there are some features in the constitution. If you change it, then the Indianness, the identity of the constitution will go away. So our judgment is, you cannot just change that particular part. Other than that, you can change every part of the constitution. So don't worry, you have all the power to amend the constitution. Parliament became another happy. Great, I can amend a whole part of constitution. Okay, tell me what are those things. I will note it down, I will not change. They said, आज नहीं बताऊंगा. Which means they said, on a case-to-case basis, we will tell you what are those features which comes under basic structure doctrine. And whenever we say something is under basic structure doctrine, you cannot touch it. In that case, they gave a few things. In some other case, they gave few more things. After some decade, they gave some more thing. Every time the court says this particular thing is a feature of basic structure doctrine, what parliamentarians need to do? Go back home and update their class notes. That from today, this thing is a feature of basic structure. So from today, we cannot amend it. Getting the point? If you basically understand what happened with Keshavananda Bharati case, is that the court told to the parliament that you cannot amend some things in the constitution. The moment you use this word cannot, what it is? Limited government. So that's how you can look at the second feature, which is the basic structure doctrine. Is it written anywhere? No, it is implicit. Similarly, if you look at fundamental rights, that is also limited government. What happens in fundamental right? We tell the state, you cannot interfere in certain areas of my life. The moment you use the word you cannot, what it becomes? Limited government. For example, democracy is also limited government. Can anyone rule us? No. Only that party which has got maximum number of seats is going to rule us. Anyone who is ruling us, can they do anything with us? No, they cannot. The moment we use the word cannot, it is limited government. And the next one is separation of powers. S is very, very important at the end. Separation of powers. Right? What is separation of power? Please give a heading. Theory of separation of power. So you will understand difference between doctrine and theory. In your handouts, please cut down the term doctrine of separation of power and write theory of separation of powers. theory of separation of power. Yes, Gaurav, democracy is a part of basic structure doctrine and SOPs also. That's what we have written. Achha, you're asking basic structure doctrine. They are part. They are part, but there are many others. So basic structure doctrine will be taught to you. Don't worry. ठीक है, जब बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर डॉक्ट्रिन आएगा तब पढ़ाया जाएगा. Sumant, fundamental right is a very difficult thing. If you ask me one question, if fundamental rights are part of basic structure doctrine, that is at least one class to teach you. At least 3 hours I need. Remember, all fundamental rights are not basic structure. Some fundamental rights are. Chalo. Stick to the topic. Don't try to understand polity in 2 hours. फिर पूरे साल बोर हो जाओगे. थोड़ा थोड़ा समझो. Separation of powers. ठीक है. To make you understand this theory, let me take you back a few centuries. Let's go back to the ends of 1600s. And let's go back to a country called France. At this point of time, France was ruled by a king by the name Louis the 14th. अरे जब नहीं पता है तो बीच में क्यों बोलना है? शांत रहो. Louis the 14th. 14th समझ में आता है सबको? See, we are Indian, so we have many names. फ्रांस में बहुत सारे नाम नहीं हैं. 2-4 नाम हैं, जिनमें से एक नाम है लुई. तो लुई का बेटा लुई, उसका बेटा लुई, उसका बेटा, सो ऐसा ही 14th लुई है. ठीक है, हमारे जैसा नाम नहीं है. से हमारे हर क्लास में 10 अभिषेक होते हैं, ऐसा नहीं है उनका. ठीक है, लुई द 14th. नाउ दिस पर्सन इज अ लिटिल स्पेशल पर्सन. आई विल टेल यू, ही लिव्ड ऑन अर्थ फॉर 77 years. कितने साल जिए ये? 77 years. But that is not important. What is important is, in those 77 years, he was a king for 72 years. Which means, at what age he became a king? आप क्या कर रहे थे 5 साल में? तब से यूपीएससी शुरू करना था. अब तो लेट हो गए. नहीं, तो ये भाई साहब 5 साल की उम्र में बन गए थे राजा. And let me tell you, all the bad images that you can have for a king, it is all the king of France. ठीक है? When we talk about authoritativeness, when we talk about cruel kings, what you imagine actually is actually imagining France ka raja. Let me tell you, that's why there was a competition between kings to become like king of France, because king of France would always talk about authoritativeness. So much so that you see so many revolution happening in France. You see that society. Why that society is like that? Because of its past. So this Louis the 14th, who is being a king for more than 7 decades. अरे इंडिया को इंडिपेंडेंट हुए 7 decades हुआ है. वो राजा था उतने साल का. He used to say that I am the state. I am the state, which means I am France. There is nothing over and above me. Remember, unlimited powers, arbitrary actions. So he is the perfect example of it, who would say that I am the state, which means I am only your executive, I am only your legislature, I am only your judiciary. Like Bollywood movies, मैं ही judge हूँ, मैं ही hero, सब कुछ. He was that Bollywood movie star, who would say that I am everything. Getting it? Now the point is, this unlimited powers lead to arbitrary action, and arbitrary actions leads to revolution in the society. Hence, Louis the 14th was killed by people by dragging him to the open court. Getting it? In this country where there was an ethos of absolute power, comes a philosopher. And that philosopher by the name of Montesquieu. Montesquieu, Lord Baron Montesquieu. बाकी नाम तो बहुत बड़ा है. You can just remember Montesquieu. He has written many books and treatises, of which one he will write in 1748 called as Spirit of Laws. And in this book, he will mention about a theory called as theory of separation of powers. Please write. According to French philosopher Montesquieu, according to French philosopher Montesquieu, the specialized functions of the state, the specialized functions of the state shall be separated from one another. The specialized functions of the state shall be separated from one another. Which means, what is Montesquieu saying? That state has got three specialized functions. Legislature having a function of enacting laws, executive having a function of implementing laws, and judiciary having a function of interpreting laws, shall be separated from one another. Which means Montesquieu is saying that whatever the legislature is doing, nothing of that work shall touch anything which is being done by the executive or the judiciary. Or whatever the executive is doing, nothing of that terms shall touch anything falling in the domain of legislature or judiciary, or anything that the judiciary does shall not touch anything which lies in the domain of legislature or executive. So what Montesquieu is talking about is also called as a watertight compartmentalization model. Watertight compartmentalization. Watertight. Nothing what is happening here shall touch anything here or here. Nothing which is happening here shall touch anything on the other two. Watertight compartmentalization, what is also called as absolute separation of powers. It's called as absolute separation of powers. Getting it? And when is Montesquieu stating this theory? Way back in 1748. The first country to incorporate the idea of theory of separation of powers was United States of America, when they wrote down their own constitution. And there they've incorporated the idea of complete separation of powers. However, after United States of America, almost every country that you see around the globe have incorporated the idea of separation of power, including India, in its constitution in 1950. But the way separation of powers is incorporated in US and the way separation of power is incorporated in India are completely different. In US there is complete separation of power. In India there is partial separation of powers. And why it is partial and not complete? That's because of parliamentary system that we see. In parliamentary system, the executive is carved out of legislature, which means to become a minister, you first have to become a member of parliament, which means this minister is both member of parliament also and a minister also. So he is a part of legislature also and is a part of executive also. But what was Montesquieu saying? That nothing of legislature shall touch anything of executive. But in case of our system, we see that the minister, the executive, is also a legislative member, and hence the term partial separation of power. Now with implementation of separation of powers, we understood one thing, that this complete separation of powers model given by Montesquieu, it is neither desirable nor possible. Neither desirable nor it is required, nor possible, nor it can be implemented. Now, why are we saying so? When such a great philosopher, after experiencing so much of tyranny and arbitrary power, writes a theory, why are we saying that the separation of power model given by that of Montesquieu, it is neither desirable nor possible? Let's try to understand it. See, tell me something. What is the work of legislature? Enactment of laws. Enact laws, right? And when they enact laws, when they are sitting in sessions, right? Or can they enact law by phone also? Zoom call में कर देंगे? नहीं, parliament आना पड़ेगा, right? So there will be sessions. Are sessions happening 24/7, 365? No, rather there are period of sessions, and when they will come for those periods only, they are going to make laws, right? Which means that legislature do not sit for 24/7, 365 days. However, executive, whose work is to implement the laws, it works 24/7, 365 days. The job that you are aspiring for is a part of executive, permanent executive. Your appointment letters is not going to say that your office will start at 10 o'clock and will be wind up at 7. Working hours nahi honge. We work for state, not for corporates. And state works 24/7. Even if at night too you go to a police station, at least one constable would be there. That constable is a part of executive. Even if morning 4 you hit a hospital, you will see at least one compounder. That compounder is nothing but part of executive. So we work 24/7, 365 days. Now let's suppose you are district collector of a particular district in your state, and you get the information of something happening in your state, and you go to the spot. When you go to the spot, you realized that it's a very emergent situation for which actually you are not having any law. It's a very normal thing. You're not having any law. It is not that for everything we have got laws. Like COVID-19 hit, we were not having any laws. It's not like we were ready with COVID from 1950 itself. When we faced the situation, we made the laws, right? So if you hit a situation and then there is no law, what do you say to the people? That, sir, I cannot do anything because my work is implementation of laws and there is no law. So let me wait for my parliamentarian to make a law. No, you are going to govern the proposition, you are going to take care of the situation, which means if need be, you should be able to make laws also, isn't it? In this situation, what you will do? In this situation, what you will do? If there is no law and you have to take care of it, what do you do? Ordinances. Arey nahi. What you will do? Huh? Arey, you are executive. President is a part of executive, na? So president will summon the session. Only if the session cannot be summoned, then comes another choice that let me make ordinances. अरे रूल्स और रेगुलेशन हवा से थोड़ी गिरेगा. रूल्स और रेगुलेशन लॉज के ऊपर बनता है. So what do? You try to summon parliament. If that is not happening, then you will go for ordinances, right? Which means what is ordinance? Executive making laws. Now making law is a work of legislature, but here who is making it? Executive, which means you are violating separation of powers, isn't it? But at the same time, tell me something, is this situation a very rare situation or can it occur anywhere in the world? Anywhere. That's why it is not desirable. Getting it? Nor it is feasible. we need to understand that governance has to be provided. So some lawmaking power has to be given to that of executive. But what if the executive starts using this power and not at all ever calls the parliament to session? What if the executive starts making laws by ordinance route itself, which means misusing the power? If that is the case, then don't you think we should have a check on the power of executive? This leads to the idea of doctrine of checks and balances. Checks and balances. Why do we have checks and balances? Because we have partial separation of power. So we have to have checks and balances so that one organ should not engulf or eat away the powers of another organ. So that's why we have checks and balances. Remember, check is a different function and balance is a different function. Check means limiting the power, stopping someone from doing something. That is check. You stop someone from doing something. Whereas on the other hand, balance is to provide for something, to balance out. If somebody is not doing it, I will do some extra work. So that extra work is to provide. Let me give an example and you will be clear. For example, think about legislature. What is the work of legislature? Enacting laws. Let's suppose the legislature starts enacting laws, but in that process, it starts even crossing its boundaries. If it starts crossing its boundaries, can we allow the legislature to cross its boundary? No, we have limited government, which means somebody has to come down and tell the legislature that legislature, you cannot cross this boundary. Who is that institution? Judiciary. And how judiciary does it? By an instrument called judicial review. Remember, review. So we'll come down and say, legislature, you cannot cross it. Let me check you. This is unconstitutional. You can't do it. Getting the point? That is check function. Now think about the same legislature. What is the role of legislature? To make laws. But what if this legislature is not making law? Think about this. In the late 1990s, a group of people came to Supreme Court and said, sir, there is a big problem in India. What is that problem? Sir, there is sexual harassment of women at workplace. Okay, it's a big problem. You please give me the law. My work is interpretation of law. Sir, there is no law. Okay, making the law is work of parliament. Let me tell parliamentarians to make a law. Okay, sir, please tell them. These people went back. Supreme Court told to the parliament, please make a law for this. These people, they came back after another 4 months. Sir, there is a big problem. Now, what is the problem? Sir, sexual harassment of women. Okay, give me the law. Sir, there is no law. Acha, let me get the law from parliament. Sir, parliament has not made the law yet. Okay, let me remind them back. They will be busy. Let me remind them back. Let them make a law. Parliament, please make a law for prohibition of sexual harassment. These people went back. After another 6 months, they came back again. Sir, there is a big problem. What is the problem? Sir, sexual harassment of women. Law? Sir, they have not made the law. So judiciary got up and said, Parliament, your work is to make a law. If you are not making the law, then judiciary cannot be the mute spectator to this injustice happening in society. If you are not going to make the law, let me give a judgment on how to stop sexual harassment of women at workplace. And then they wrote down a judgment. Now we know that court's judgment in India is having force of a law. It is as good as law. And how the judiciary did it? The judiciary did it by an instrument called as judicial activism. And when the judiciary applied judicial activism, when the legislature was not doing its work, what it was assigned to do. Why judiciary has to make the law? In order to give justice to the society, to provide for. That is called as balance function. And the case we are talking about is called as the Vishaka guidelines. Those people who were coming back again and again were called by an NGO as Vishaka. Understood? This is done by checks and balances. Now understand one thing. At a macro level in India, there is a check and balances mutually between the institutions. So there is a mutual checks and balances. So you have legislature, you have executive, you have judiciary. The judiciary checks the legislature by judicial review, whereas the legislature checks the judiciary by removal process. You will understand that the parliament can remove the judges. Getting it? Similarly, the judiciary checks the executive by judicial review, whereas the executive checks the judiciary with appointment process. Who appoints the judges? The president appoints the judges. Getting it? Similarly, the executive, it checks the legislature by proceedings. Only when the executive will summon legislature, then only they will come. Inside also, only when the speaker facilitates the talks of legislative members, they can talk. So with proceeding, it's check the legislature. On the other hand, the legislature checks the executive by asking questions and debate and discussions. So there is a mutual checks and balance at the macro level in India between institutions. Getting the point? Now, limited government was something which was implicit in Indian Constitution. If we talk about separation of powers, it is both implicit as well as explicit. As far as implicit presence is there, you have got Constitution. Constitution by design is limited government, and limited government is separation of powers. It is Constitution only which divides the power between the legislature, executive and judiciary. So establishes the theory of separation of powers. Getting it? As far as explicit reference is concerned, there are many places. Let me give you two examples. At the macro level, if you look at part 5 or part 6 of the Constitution, you will come across union or states respectively. And in union, you will get the difference between that of the legislature, the executive, the ordinance making power, you leave it, and judiciary. So if you look at it, it talks about separation of powers. Similarly, at the micro level, if you look at it, look at part 4 of the Constitution, which is DPSPs, you will read about it, wherein there is a dedicated article, Article 50, which explicitly talks about separation of powers, the executive power from that of the judicial powers in that of a public service role. Public service means the position at which you will go, district collector. A district collector is an executive office. Now this office came during the colonial time, Cornwallis, came during the colonial time. At that time, both executive and judicial powers were given to the district collector, and hence you call the district collector also as district magistrate. Magistrate is a judicial authority, but we call district collector as district magistrate also. That's because both kind of powers were given to the collector. But DPSP says that the executive power shall be divided from judicial power. DPSP is non-enforceable, but in 1973 we realized that no, it's high time we should divide the power. So in 1973 we amended the CRPC where both the powers were given, and then we divided both the powers. Judicial powers, which were there majorly with the DC, were given back to the judicial body, which means the district judge. All executive power remains back with district collector. There are some judicial power which are still with district collector, like that of section 144, curfew, unlawful assembly. It's a very important power, and hence it is still there with that of the district collector. Getting it? This talks about separation of powers. Now understand one thing, never ever confused confuse between separation of powers and division of power. Separation of powers, powers, S, plural, which means horizontal division of the powers of the state. Executive, legislature, judiciary. Division of power, singular, power, means each power is divided at two levels, central level, state level. So central executive, state executive. Legislature, central parliament, state legislature. What about judiciary? No, we have an integrated judiciary. Don't you remember it? We do not have a central or a state judiciary. So do not confuse between separation of powers and division of power. Clear to all of you? Rahul, implicit means something that you understand by reference or derivation. ऐसा लिखा नहीं होगा कि लिमिटेड गवर्नमेंट है, पर बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर डॉक्ट्रिन समझेंगे तो समझ में आएगा कि इट इज ट्राइंग टू लिमिट द पावर. गेटिंग इट? दैट इज इम्प्लिसिट. एंड एक्सप्लिसिट मींस लिखा होगा, जैसे आर्टिकल 50 में लिखा है कि सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर हैज टू बी मेंटेन्ड फॉर पब्लिक अथॉरिटीज. ठीक है? इज दिस क्लियर टू ऑल ऑफ यू? Okay, so next class we meet and we start from preamble itself. Please read the text of preamble and come back to the class. Take. Thank you.